Welcome, everyone, to episode, what is it this week? 338? Is it something like that? It's one of them. I'm not really sure because I didn't check before I started.
You didn't do that last week either.
I know. I've been slacking. It's been a weird... Well, it's Christmas. It's the holidays, and there's new phone systems to be done. There's garland to be hung. There's staff meetings to attend.
Yeah.
There's special guests to welcome to the show.
We don't ask much out of you, Randy.
Nothing. We are totally good, and my mind is sharp as the backside of the tack after you pull it out of your foot.
Ooh,
But right,
that's pretty sharp.
That's pretty sharp. That's what I'm thinking. So, last week, the rooster, not a chicken, showed up in the studio.
It's true.
Since then, I have heard that this rooster has been circulating around this facility for years.
Really?
I did not know that. John Monday.
I was unaware of that too.
I was unaware. So it seems as though he's supposed to move on, but I'm just telling
But
you.
you're feeling like you're going to keep him.
If anyone steals Rudy, man, there's going to be...
he has a name now.
Rudy. And so...
There it is.
So, yeah, all right. So everyone introduce yourself.
Razan Maxon, R-A-Z-A-N, Razan.
Razan.
Cecilia Maxon.
And I'm Rachel Bohigas.
All right. So they won the swag bag of WholeLife gear because I was like, look, if he's going to live here, if he's going to be the podcast mascot, we have to have a name. So they suggested that it was Rootin' Tootin' Rudy the Rooster. We had also...
Do we have to say all of those every time we
Every
talk?
time.
Every time.
Well, it's the official title.
Rootin', tootin', Rudy the Rooster.
I'll be working on the plaque shortly.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm going to have my daughter sew a little cape for him.
Nice.
Because I think he needs it. Maybe a little set of headphones if we can get those.
With a big R on the cape.
For Rudy.
Yeah,
For
that
Rudy.
would make sense.
With the whole
Rudy's
Rootin'
Nick-
Tootin' Rooster.
the
Rootin'
Rootin'
Tootin'.
Tootin' Rooster.
It's
So
like the 3 R's.
the 3 R's. So then when we really have a good show, we can say, Rudy,
There we
Rudy,
go.
Rudy. And then we can all sit together and watch Rudy, which is a really long, kind of boring
The most
movie.
eclectic podcast
Ever
isn't
in
it?
history, isn't it?
It is.
So all I'm saying is, if you're a regular listener and you will go on social media when we ask for a question,
Yep.
you could win some cool swag.
Yep.
And here's 3 people that are going to be
Just
going
the
home with some
huge-
stuff.
Not only do they win cool swag, they actually are in the studio for this
In the
podcast. Isn't that incredible?
Exactly. So
And you know what? I think we ought to mention this because it is a little disappointing. So they have one of our coolest small groups in our church, and yet people just haven't been showing up for it the way that I thought they would. I would,
When and where
especially
does
when
this
you get to
happen?
hang out with really cool people like
Weak
them.
attendance so far. We've had us.
Yeah.
oh no.
So that's how they happened to be pulled into the podcast because, as you're well aware, Randy, we had a crazy afternoon and
was.
didn't get around to the podcast till about about 6 o'clock, 6:30, something like that.
Yeah, we're close.
6:22 on the dot.
So
Does your group happen to be here?
it's 6 o'clock. They have Tuesday night. Is it every Tuesday night or No.
Currently, we're meeting once a month.
okay?
On either a Tuesday or a Sunday. And it's for board games. Our small group is for board games.
Board games.
So we're about to have a showdown.
All right.
Tonight it's Catan. Is it
Yeah.
Catan or Catan? I never know how to pronounce that properly.
I think the way you're saying it is the wrong way because you're going to lose.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
The smack talk has begun.
So
Cecilia is the reigning champ of Catan at our house.
So after tonight, she will be the former reigning champ. Well, I guess of your house, you could still stay that way, but just anyway.
See, and this
So
is
we
what
are fighting this evening for the reigning champ of WholeLife Church. Catan.
But just what shocks me is like
kissing the guns, though.
I
That's the way.
love board games. I just can't believe more people haven't So anyway, I was going to stay late tonight to do this.
There you
So
go.
now I
would if I didn't have to do it.
so I can play. I got them to come up here so I could spend the time. And then I can go play after I get done with this.
If I didn't have to edit this, I would stay and play because, hey, who doesn't love some good board games?
Exactly.
So guess what? If you want to be a part of this group, swipe up in today's show notes. I will have a link to their group, and then you guys can all get together.
Boom.
And so Board Gamers Unite.
Boom.
Hashtag
Yes.
Board
There we
Gamers
go.
Unite. Is that what it works like?
Yep.
So this Sabbath, are you going to be here?
We won't. Rachel will be here.
Okay,
Andrew.
so I will do my best to have. I will just now say that I don't put the gift bags together because I'm not cool like that. But I have someone that helps me do this and makes it look really cool. So we will make sure. So stop and see me this week, and we'll gift the gift bags out to you guys.
Now, I think we should mention that they were very integral to this last week's church service. For those of you who may be like trying to figure out the names and like. This was Zechariah.
They wouldn't be able to put it with last week's faces, though.
Yeah, last week's faces. There was some extensive makeup that went on there. But
how good and how good was the makeup?
Excellent.
My wife came in, and she doesn't know you guys, knows who you are by sight, and she's like, "Did you see those people in Ken's office?" She's like, "I walked in the makeup. I didn't realize it was makeup." And she's like, "The teeth were all brown, and it really looked like wrinkles, and really looked pretty bad."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, you know who that is, right?" And then I told her, she's like, "Wow." Then I realized it was not makeup. So that's how good the makeup was. That's awesome.
Abel came in to mic us while we were still getting done up. And he was like, "Is Razan here?" Right.
He's right there. All right.
That was really good. You guys did a great job with that, by the way.
you.
It was so good.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for stopping by. And, if you have something to add, now you don't always have to show up in person because honestly, we don't really know what time we'll be here.
You never know when it's going to happen.
When it's going to happen. And you're likely not to be here. But 407-965-1607 or podcast at WholeLife.church. And
I'm
questions,
pretty excited.
comments?
Next week, we'll actually have a new member of our podcast, I do believe.
Oh, that's right. Have you told Melanie yet?
I have.
You have? She knows?
I don't know that she knows she's going to do it next week, but
man, we're going to have to get
it's
some
her first
more.
day of work, so
one of these
to work.
One of these days, that interior designer we hired to help me with the studio really needs to show up and get this place in order for me to start adding more people.
Figure that out.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being
You guys
here.
are welcome to hang out and listen if you want, or whatever. If you want to go play games, and I'll meet you down there in a few minutes.
It's up to you.
Cool. That's good. We'll probably
Whatever.
Yeah, we'll head
head up
out.
to.
We're gonna head out.
We'll
Just in
continue-
case anyone shows up.
And show. You're right.
and
Don't
continue
miss them.
helping
Oh.
Right.
on Monday with Christmas.
That's right. Swipe up in those show notes and check out their game night group and join.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thank you. All right. So this week, what we were talking about, we're in our Rise to Christmas series. This was the first message, and it was a rise to unexpected blessings. And we were talking about Elizabeth and Zechariah. And I feel like every time you talk about this story, it's all about Zechariah losing his voice, and the rest of it just kind of goes like, well, yeah, but he didn't exactly follow what God asked him to do, or what the angel asked him to do, and it wasn't exactly, but it all ends well. So was it a really big deal? But I liked how Ken put together like the waiting that they went through, and we're all none of us are good at the waiting.
No.
I think we can all just own up to that we don't see it. But when you talked about the waiting, and you talked about how Elizabeth and Mary took two different approaches to it, and Zechariah, and the part that I really liked about it was through all of that, God still delivered.
Yep.
It wasn't like, do we not know it? Is it, you just don't have enough faith, Randy? When we're in the middle of these things that we feel pretty sure like, oh yeah, God's going to take care of this, or I really felt like this is what I was supposed to do. We've talked before about, well, sometimes I don't know for sure. I pray, and I feel like, well, I go with the one that seems right to me because I didn't really get a great answer. But here's two instances where we had definite instruction, and we had the outcome, right? Like the outcome wouldn't be in doubt, but we still had doubt. So part of it makes me feel like a little bit better.
Yeah.
You had an angel show up
Yep.
and talk to you,
Yep.
and you still are like, man, there is
Prove it. I mean, that's really what Zechariah does. Prove it. I'm here. What? I don't know. It's like, it is funny though. Don't we do? I mean, and we can laugh about Zechariah, but the truth is we all do that to God. God shows up and we're like, yeah, but prove it.
Yeah,
But prove it. Prove it.
And I wonder, because a lot of times I feel like, how badly do we screw it up? And how even maybe more would we screw it up if we knew the outcome? Like if we knew the outcome, would you ever, it's that age-old question, would you change how the journey went if you knew what the outcome was going to be? But can the journey be the same outcome, or can the outcome be the same if you don't go through the journey? And I feel like that's the part where you're just supposed to, bootstrap it a little bit and just, put those bootstraps of faith, pull them up a little bit tighter, tie them to make sure they don't come loose. But that doesn't feel great in the middle of you trying to figure out the weight and figure out what God has for you. This again has a happy ending, and he blesses both in spite of the responses. So what's the difference between Mary's story and Elizabeth and Zechariah? Because they both came true and they were both good. So what are we learning? Should we doubt? And maybe it's a little bit, I don't know that either road was easy, I guess is what I'm saying. So was there a right or a wrong way here?
I think there's probably some pretty important differences in the story that they're easy to gloss over. I think Zechariah and Elizabeth had been living with disappointment for a long time. And so, Mary was a young girl where, becoming pregnant, granted without
terrifying.
Being married is but I think when you look at the story, you're not comparing apples with apples in that experience. But what I would take away from it is that God is faithful, whether we get things right away, or it takes us a little while to get it figured out. And I think the other important thing to remember is look at Zechariah. Luke points out that they were righteous.
Yeah.
And yet a righteous guy was like, yeah, prove it. And so I think that's another thing to just kind of remember a little bit is that, good people make mistakes and don't always show the faith that they should in the moment. And that's part of the Christian walk at times. And the question is, what do you do with it later? And what did Zechariah do with it later? He showed his faith later on by saying his name will be John.
Yeah.
The angel was right. This is what I'm going to do. And but at the same time, probably would have been better for Zechariah to be able to talk for 9 months, I'm just saying. And yet maybe that's what he needed in his spiritual journey with where he was at, and God gave him what he needed, was maybe some time for some quiet reflection. And so, I don't know, when I look at that story, I think one of the things that I am reminded of, it's very easy to look at other people's stories and think, oh, look how they got it right, and look how I get things wrong, and how, or even maybe I look at how I got it right and look how they got that wrong. And rather than doing that, we just probably need to focus on our walk with Jesus and not spend too much time criticizing or wishing that we were somebody else. And just kind of, let that happen in our life. But I do love that Luke just has this habit of making women heroes and kind of being like, look at that. Look at Zechariah doubted, Elizabeth, Mary didn't.
Yeah.
Mary said, let it be. Zechariah said, well, why don't you prove it? And so I do love that about, one of the little aspects of Luke is that he brings out the many really remarkable women in the story of Jesus.
I really liked the humanity that, to me, it showed. Again, two responses, two ways to look at it, and is there any right or wrong way to do it? We're all individuals, and we all have that relationship with God that needs strengthening, no matter who we are. And I wondered, the part of Mary being younger and them being older. I'm assuming as a young woman, pregnant out of wedlock, she was probably terrified. Yeah. And she still found a way, because I think someone today would still be terrified, but to find a way to just let it be, right? This is it. And then I think we put ourselves, the more sometimes we know, or we think we know, the older we get, the more experience. Yeah. And then we kind of go, there is no way that can happen. Yeah. And so now I took a lot of parallels to my life and just kind of looked at it during this message and thinking about, it's almost reversed. Like the young person here is getting it right and showing how it's done. And the older I mean, are we at a little bit of a disadvantage the longer we do this? In some cases, what would you tell someone to just be wary or to be just really zeroed in on Christ? I mean, I guess that's always the goal, but it just seems like the further we go, maybe we're just tripping ourselves up.
Yeah. It's not a particularly large secret that the older you get, the deeper the grooves in your brain on this is the way things need to be, right? And
So
it's
true.
it's funny,
So
like when you're young, you can't imagine that there would ever be a day where you wouldn't be able to see possibilities, and then as you get older, you're like, yeah, but this is the right way to do it. I mean, I know that, right? And
Right.
and this is what sounds good, and this is what's the right, and so. I think that, again, having a growth mindset throughout life is a challenge. I think we always have to be open to learning new things, to getting information from maybe unexpected sources that can be helpful at times. I think about the good things I've learned in my life from unlikely sources.
Yeah.
And I think that we just have to be open to that.
Unexpected timing too.
Yeah.
This past week, we always do, if you know anything about WholeLife Church, we try to do creative announcements that make sure they stick in your head. And Stanley with Duck Duck Productions, who takes care of that for us along with our input and our help, asked me if, hey, would you do something for Thanksgiving? And so I grabbed the camera and I did a little thing about what I was thankful for. And we had done a 5K and apple pie. Oh, apple pie. So we had done a 5K that day. It was actually Thanksgiving Day. And Ellie was like, sure, I'll say something. And when I asked Emily what she was thankful for, I'm like, just tell me one thing you're thankful for. And she's just looked at the camera, paused for a second and said, I love God. I keep watching that clip over and over again since she did it. And I had to cut it a little bit short. She had a few other things that she was thankful for. And it wasn't the 5K at all. She looked at that medal for about 30 seconds. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah. I'm done now. You promised me things for completing this. Where are those things? I don't see them in front of me. But something as innocent as that young person, again, who doesn't have the travel baggage, it doesn't have all the life experience. Sometimes it's just putting your pride aside and going, yeah, that's right. It's just, I love God. What else do I need to, what else could I be more thankful for? And that just really stuck with me this week. And then when I listened to the message, I thought, again, look at how the roles were kind of reversed and how that played. I just thought that dynamic it's just been just maybe flipping things around for me a little bit more than I've ever considered in that story. And it kind of throws you back to, we always talk about the disciples. They walked with Jesus, and the children of Israel had they had Mount Sinai, they had the cloud and the pillar, and they had the promises from angels, and you get a little bit jealous about, man, those are some really cool experiences, and boy, wouldn't my faith be better if I had those experiences. And that made me think of, no, it wouldn't. When she said that, no, it wouldn't, because I'm always trying to find the next best thing or try a better way to study the Bible. This morning during staff meeting, I thought having us take a chapter or a part of a chapter and writing it out, paraphrasing it. That's genius. I've never thought about that. And we're always looking for different ways, but at the end, sometimes I just think we're so smart, we just overlook that. Yeah, I love God. Yeah, and that stuck with me.
Not complicated.
Right, don't complicate it. So we did have a question, even though we did not have time during this, or we didn't leave time.
Yeah, this whole Advent season makes for big church services full of lots of stuff. So the Q&A is going to go ahead and take a hiatus until, I believe, December 31.
Yeah,
and we'll bring it back on December 31.
Okay, but this one came through the chat, so just know that Stanley or whoever is on that week as your online worship host, myself, we are checking those to make sure that we have questions.
We like questions.
So Nate was our knight in shining armor.
Okay.
He said, so I wonder what Pastor Ken means by loose hope. Would that be considered as realistic hope?
Ooh, I love that, and thank you for asking the question. I really struggled to come up with the right term for what I wanted to say when I said hold on to hope loosely, because that makes it sound like, well, no, you want to grip hope, you want to hold on to it tightly,
never let go.
But I think that what I'm trying to say with hold on to hope loosely is that sometimes we hope too small. And when you have a tight grip on what you have to have, like Elizabeth and Zechariah, they really wanted a child. And when you grip that hope really tight, it wasn't that God wasn't going to give them a child, it just wasn't going to happen on their timeline. They had a tight, I'm guessing their idea of when they were going to have a child was very narrow. Or at least maybe we should just say not narrow, just realistic.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think what I'm trying to say when I say hold on to hope loosely is not so much be realistic as don't be realistic. Hold on to a hope that gives God room to give you something better.
Ooh.
That gives God room to work in a way that may be different than your expectation, but still doesn't disappoint.
Yeah.
In fact, maybe exceeds expectation. And so that's what I was probably trying to convey with that hold on to hope loosely. It's not don't let go of hope. Hold on to hope, but don't hold on to it so tightly that you narrow down the possibilities. I actually mentioned this in first service, but not in second service because we were running into some time issues because that's the way I preach. It can vary here and there. But for those of you who are listening or viewed second service and not first service, one of the things I included in first service that wasn't in second service was the Stockdale paradox.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Jim Stockdale, and this is talked about in Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. He talks about interviewing Jim Stockdale, who is, I believe, an admiral. I believe he was the highest ranking U.S. military figure held in captivity during the Vietnam War. I believe he was in a Vietnamese prison for 7 years. He was tortured. He went through all kinds of really terrible things. And so Jim Collins interviews him about what his experience was like. And Jim asks him, okay, so who are the first people to not survive that prison experience? And Collins says, without a doubt, it was the optimists. The optimists were the first to die. And the reason is because they would say, I'm going to be out of, it's right now, it's December, we're moving into December. I'll be out of here by Christmas. The U.S. will negotiate. I'll be out of here by Christmas. Well, Christmas rolls around and they're not out. And they're like, well, but by the new year, I'll be out. And each one of those things comes and goes and they're not out. And eventually they die of a broken heart. They give up. Their optimism is not grounded in the reality that they live in. And so Stockdale said, pessimists also didn't fare well because it's all over. So that, but he said the people that really were able to survive were those who were able to do what he calls the Stockdale, what Jim Collins called the Stockdale paradox. It was to maintain hope while accepting the reality that they lived in. So you hope for something, but you also acknowledge the brutal facts of where you're at and what's going on.
So the realist.
That's what I like to think. I don't know if
maybe there's not enough.
I think that what you I think that oftentimes people like want to say that they're realists when they're being pessimists.
That's true.
Just to make themselves feel a little bit better. But yeah, a true realist maybe is that person though that is like this. These are my circumstances. This is reality. However, I am hoping for something better. I'm not just accepting and saying this is what I need forever. I hold on to the hope in Stockdale's case that a day will come where I will be freed, where the U.S. will find a way to get me home. And so that's the paradox. And I think it's one of those things that as Christians, we need to balance, that hope of Jesus coming back with the reality that we are living in this world at this time. We are here. And when Jesus comes back is not something that we control. But what we do control is what we do every day and the choices that we make, the way that we choose to express our faith. And so I think that's what I really am trying to get at when I talk about holding on to hope loosely. It's that paradox of knowing where you're at, accepting the reality of where you are while yet holding on to that hope of a better day or of that promise that you're looking for, that you're hoping for.
And that fits in so good with, here they both had promises, both came true, and, one had to wait, one didn't, but at the same time, the end result. So if you really believe as an Adventist and, knowing what the name means, that Jesus is coming back, like that is a fact, then it still doesn't make it easy sometimes to digest. This morning, Matthew 24, when you start reading that, it's a little sobering about like, hey, this is what's going to happen, and this all has to come to pass because this is God's plan. This is how it has to be. But also going, you know what, as bad as it is, as long as it is, at the end, Jesus wins. If we just remember, this has already been done. It's already been paid for. It's just a matter of time running its course until Jesus comes back. And we can pray for that to be sooner, later. And I always like in The Chosen when, and again, this is not necessarily biblical, but when Jesus tells the disciples, oh, soon. There's that word again. And I just feel like, even though that I don't think he ever said that in the Bible, that the thought process behind it though brings me hope, and I hope that is a conversation that he had, and if not, it's a conversation I think about, that I talk to him about, like how soon is that, and every day give me give me what you have, and but just help me through it. Don't leave me.
I just remember with both my children, just not being able to wait for them to be born. Just not being able to wait for the day that they would show up and I'll be able to hold them and see them and watch them grow up. And yet, you get to that 9-month range, and both of our children went past term, and you're just kind of like, when's it going to be? When's it going to be? And you look forward to it, but you also recognize that they're on their timeline. And I guess in a pregnancy, there's some things you can do to change that timeline if you need to. But my point is that I think that that's the way we need to hold on to Jesus. I believe Jesus is coming back. I think he's coming back soon. And if he doesn't, that doesn't change anything for me. At the same time, I refuse to be one of those people who's like, well, he's not going to come back, or he's not, and he just probably won't come back in my lifetime. To me, that's the pessimist that's just giving up. It's like, well, why wouldn't you be excited to be with Jesus and to have him return and restore things? And to me, that's the difference. Some people say, well, if you die, well, then you'll see Jesus after that. But the difference is that when Jesus comes back, he's making everything right.
Yeah.
Everything. It's not just me. It's everything that Jesus, when he returns, there will be a return to that original Garden of Eden, that world made new.
All wrongs made right.
All wrongs made right for everyone.
Yep.
For everyone.
That's a good way to think about it, though.
And I look forward to that. How can I not look forward to that? Every time somebody I love dies, every time somebody I care about is hurt or wounded by something that happens, how can I not look forward to Jesus coming back and wanting him to come back and wanting to do what I can to speed up the day of his return? And the Bible says that we have something to do in that process. And to me, it's a little bit of a mystery. And yet at the same time, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of Jesus coming back and making all things new.
It's easy to look back, though, when we say, if you were raised Christian, specifically if you were raised Adventist, I heard growing up all the time, wars and rumors of wars, and that's how you will know. But then you're like, well, that's just the beginning of the birthing process and the birthing pains. What we read this morning in Matthew 24, but it's easy to look and say, well, here were my grandparents or my parents, and they thought their whole life it was going to happen. Yeah. But why is that a bad thing? Yeah. Why not look at that and then internalize that and realize as we're moving forward yeah, let's be a part of it. Whether Jesus comes in my lifetime or whether he doesn't, whatever he has for us each individually to do, let's just do it with the best we know how.
Yep.
And just know we're a part of that. I think when you think of it that way, it's actually very cool.
Yep.
Very cool. One other thing I wanted to do, I actually saw this this afternoon. I was eating a sandwich and I was going through Twitter, and I follow Adam Grant, who I like a lot.
That's awesome.
And he had a tweet that came out, I believe it was today. And he says, in hard times, people don't want to be told to look on the bright side. They want to know that you're on their side. Even if you can't help them feel better, you can always help them feel seen. The best way to support others is not to cheer them up, it's to show up. Instead of look on the bright side, say, I'm here for all the sides. And he had a little comic strip that went on the bottom of it. And I just thought about the message, and that was really timely. Just that, during this time, I'm sure Zechariah and Elizabeth and all the things they'd been hearing for years, like I'm sure they were sick of it, even though they'd had this promise and all these the talk, and sometimes I think we get down and we just can't feel it, and we're looking for someone, or if we see someone, don't look on the bright side. Just wherever you are, however you're feeling, I'm here for you, and God's not going to leave you, because that's really what he just never gives up on us. No matter how we deal with what he gives us, he doesn't give up, and really that's what I'm taking with me, because I know that that's probably the most important thing for me as well. All right, next week it is Arise to Unexpected Decisions, another Arise to Christmas Part 2. And what are we talking about? Oh, the Magi.
The Magi.
Ooh, I like the sounds of that. The Magi. So, let's see. The Magi. How are we unexpected decisions in the Magi? Did they have unexpected decisions? I guess they did. Unexpected blessings this week. Unexpected decisions. Man, where are we going with this? How much are you willing to share?
Let's just have you show up at church. How about that?
How about that? All right.
No, it's this one is on faith. And so
cool.
We're going to talk about the faith that the Magi exhibited to make the journey, not just to make the journey, but to listen to God when he showed up and told them to do something, to go home a different way. Anyway, so we'll be talking a bit about that, and I think it'll be a fun discussion. And we're going to do our take on this, but I'd like, for those of you podcast people, you go ahead and tell me let's go ahead and say that today, we know Jesus is coming back a second time, so it works out a little bit differently, right? Mm-hmm. But if Jesus was being born today, who would the Magi be that show up to Christianity?
Someone real, or
who would they be? What would their equivalent be today?
And someone like we could point to?
Yeah. So if you're like a modern day equivalent of the Magi, would they be just a different sect of Christianity, or would they be a different religion, maybe? Or so just ponder that a little bit. Just what do you think the Jewish leaders thought when a bunch of magicians, that's where the word magi, when a bunch of magicians showed up in Jerusalem saying, where's that king? Where's your new king?
And asking the experts, where's that king?
Yeah, your Messiah was born. Where's he at?
Oh, man.
Think about that.
Man, and this happens to me every year. And I heard Ken say this earlier today, and I don't want to throw you under the bus, but I'm going to just a little bit.
All right.
That a little bit bah humbug sometimes on Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been there, and I've really been working on that because my girls appreciate me working on it. And so I accept your
testimony.
Yeah. I really try hard. But I will say in the last few years being here at Florida Hospital Church and now WholeLife Church, that I have appreciated our Christmas story messages unlike any other that I've ever heard. And I like the fact that, Andy did it, and now I can already see that Ken is keeping in that tradition and just making sure that we're looking at the pieces that we're not used to hearing when you sit down with the kids and read the story, or you read it for yourself. I like to read it for myself every Christmas. There's something about Jesus' story that just warms your heart no matter what. But finding little snippets and pieces of the Christmas story that is something you could recite. We sang it as kids during plays and different, memorizing those verses. But then to come back at it later and find little nuggets, it's one of my favorite things. And so while I'm not really a Christmas kind of person anymore, I really do like Christmas messages. So stay tuned for that.
You know what? I love the original intention of Christmas.
Oh, see, now
I'm a lot less enthusiastic about what Christmas has become commercially.
Can I give you a gift card?
Well, I mean, if you're going to give me something, then I become a little bit more enthusiastic, maybe. Oh my word!
Oh, I did. No, I know. And I
just tell you what, just work in retail one Christmas season and see what it does to your Christmas spirit.
So who killed your Christmas spirit?
I worked at the Disney store. Worked at the Disney store in college over Christmas, and it was special. There's nothing like the Christmas cheer of Christmas Eve and somebody walking into the Disney store expecting to find the hottest item of the year still on the shelf, 10 minutes before closing, and then cusses you out as your Christmas gift. That's
you kept one in the back for them, right? You knew they were coming.
Yeah, of course. That was exactly what they suggested. Like, the funny thing about when I worked for the Disney store is they won't even allow you to wear, like, if you purchase a Disney watch, you can wear it when you're at on stage at the Disney store.
Sure.
But if a guest comes in and sees that and there's not one like it in the...
You're supposed to give it to them?
Yes. Yep.
Are they reimbursing you for this?
Nope. That's your fault. They tell you not to wear it.
What?
At that time. I don't know what they do today, so I don't know what the policy is today, but we were told there is a Disney cast member specific watch that they gave you.
Oh,
and
okay.
you could wear that. And a guest could not. I mean, the guest can ask for it, but it's only for cast members. But if you wore, if you bought one of the watches out of whatever,
out of the retail,
and you wore it, and
wow,
a guest walked in and wanted it, you had to take it off and hand it over. So
wowzers.
That was so. But anyway, so I say that to set up the fact that, can you imagine how insulting it is when a guest walks in and says, "I know you have a Buzz Lightyear in the back that you're keeping for yourself," and you're like, I'd be fired in a heartbeat if I did that.
Right.
And then the guest starts,
colorful,
talking about your mother and talking about you, and
don't you talk about my mama?
But as every Disney cast member knows, you have to smile and be nice. And I appreciate that about that. I think that's one of the really cool things about them. But it was a little disturbing to see how many people really believe that the spirit of Christmas lies in what they're getting. And that Christmas is somehow ruined if you don't get the gift that you were expecting to get, or you're not able to give the gift that you were wanting to give. I really don't have anything against giving gifts. I think it's a beautiful thing, but to tie that to Christmas being ruined.
Yeah.
Christmas is ruined if Herod kills Jesus. That's how it's ruined. Okay. But no, not,
Christmas is ruined if I'm not with my
because
family.
you didn't get your favorite, Disney plush animal. So anyway.
Well, let's do this. Now that, Ken has shared, I would really like to hear if you're Christmas, like you are the best Christmas person ever Tell me why.
Yeah.
Tell me why. And if you have an experience like Ken, I can see right now, Ken is now relaxed. He's, it was cathartic for him to just
I
get
do.
that.
I feel much better.
So he's jumping into this Christmas season. He got it off his chest
did.
for this year.
Yeah.
So if you need to get it off your chest, if you send a voicemail or text 407-965-1607 podcast at hospital. Oh, at hospital.
Oh, Randy, how long has it been?
I know, 6 years. You still bad habits. Podcast at WholeLife.church. We will play your voicemail. We'll read your text, and we'll all heal a little bit together. Because I think, it's taken a long time for me to get back to and really being intentional about it. And for me, the way to get back into it has been, we have done, and something, this is probably more my wife, and at one time it was just financial, couldn't afford a tree every single year of our marriage. So we started doing like the Charlie Brown tree, taking a plant in the house, making that the tree. This year I'm building a pallet tree because we had a real tree last year, even though it was the top off of another tree that they threw out on the side. I said, how much?
That's real.
And it was $3 or $5 for like a 3-foot tree. It was one of the coolest trees we've ever had. So this year we're doing something different. Our tradition is to have a different Christmas tree every single year to just be creative and have fun. So that brings something for me, and it's made me feel like, all right, Christmas isn't so bad, but it's less about the gifts. It's more about being together. And there's some other traditions that we've started that I can't talk about because it's secret.
Oh, well.
But you can ask my wife or my
There
daughter.
you
Ask Ellie, she'll tell you because
All right.
she couldn't resist. But so send those in. Would love to all grow together and heal together in this in this Christmas process and not be bah humbug together as a family.
There we are.
All right, that's going to do it for this week. Send those in. I really do honestly want to hear them, read them, and share them. So we will see you all again next week.